Hello everyone, I'm High Treason, and yeah, this is Blood Map's only one in this. It is a huge map, it takes up the whole grid, so we're going to be in it for quite a while, but first I got a couple of other things. Number one, if we start map edit, just like regular build, bastard build, we'll open newboard.map. And I typically just used to ask and S, and so maps would get saved to that. And this is my newboard.net. Now, I knew there was more to it, and I found more of it, and I decided to look at a bunch of other shit. So there's actually another part, it's a leftovers part, which sort of assumes you've seen this one first and sort of doesn't. So I'll just leave that unlisted in the description, watching any order you want. It's up to you, but yeah. Whilst the level we're going to look at is probably the last map as it were, this is probably the last thing I worked on. Secondly, the long drive. Isn't part 46 that's just gone up? Well, believe it or not, despite what you'd think, we are more than halfway. We're probably closer to 2/3. Bear with me on it, because I know it's probably not a popular thing, but it's just me. I want to say I've done it. Whilst I will log the journey back, that probably won't be more than 5 or 10 parts at most. Like, it could literally be over 1,000k that we'd do in one video, because I'd just check in at key moments. There's no need to ever see the full road again, but like I say, it's just one of those silly things. Thinking of other things to play, but we'll come back to that as we go along. I think really we should just start this up. Because this map, it's sort of old, but it's sort of not. You see, this map lived a very, very long time, and so we have various naming schemes for it and stuff. I don't quite remember what it was, but somewhere in here there is basically a very early version of it. Like, that's just one room, which we'll come back to. The casses that we're about to go past, there are, versions of it there. Lots and lots of revisions. I don't have what the last ones were, but I have this at least. So notice how the naming conventions were. It's been through all these different naming conventions, at least 3 of them that I know of, and this is where we end up. So let's have a look at this. I've got a bit of editing I'll have to do on this one, so it's going to dump us in here, or it should. There we go. This map's very corrupt, so it may crash and we're going to have problems, but immediately you will see these weird slopes from different sort of time periods, areas that don't necessarily match up in the era they were made. You can see them there, you will see them around here, and shading mismatches. You're going to run into these kinds of things in here. This is a switch, and once you've used it once, it will never block you again. Yeah, you can see another slope bit over there, down to the sort of shorter tree area there. Now, we'll come back to this area, but I want you to sort of look at that and maybe try and figure out when that might be from, because it's a lot newer than what we're about to look at. Also, look at the non-straight walls is maybe something to think about. We have, going up to the entrance, these wedge doors. Now, that's certainly going to be, that has been a theme in all maps, that we have these wedgy doors and corrupted sectors, which is not fun. And what's through here is actually the oldest room, and there's a lot of telltale things in here. Where this room was the first room built, and it used to have stained glass in it. But what's weird is, whilst it was the oldest room, it wasn't used on the earlier versions of the castle. Like, nah, it wasn't. And in fact, this was outside. And this brick texture, well, that was the whole exterior of the castle at one time, but originally it was actually trees. So a little bit strange, but yeah, we'll sort of come back to that. So we're going in, again, this is all geometry. I don't know the exact period this is from, but if you've been paying attention to things, look at the way things are shaded, look at the widths of things. There's no real rhyme or reason to the width of walkways. This wasn't here. That opening there, that's newer. So that was added in later. And of course, remembering the exact order of things, I do have old revisions of the map, as you're probably gathering from the little shots I'm inserting. You know, I might have older versions of it, but I don't have all of them. There's quite a lot of gaps. This was certainly one of the first things built in here. Look at that way to get around crossing sector boundaries, and I really don't know why it goes across here like this. But yeah, this is pretty old stuff here. And again, we're looking out here, but this maybe wasn't originally looking out there. There would have been a sector there, 2 sets of curtains, because that one don't work. So, well, when that don't work, you know, fuck the curtains, do them again from scratch, and just leave the old ones in, because I don't know how to delete or copy or anything when I made this. Fuck the curtains, put your dick in them, you know, maybe don't do that, that's not how we meant it, but yeah, that's a set of curtains. I do find it interesting my construction of beds never really changed the whole time. It's something you'll notice, or I don't think they have. I've never noticed before. So this, you go outside, right? No. Because, what do you know, I might as well turn that on, or bad things might happen. Because what do you know, what did we say? This area was outside, and so we just never corrected that. You know, why would it lead anywhere else? Even though this room was older. So look, that gives you an idea. That's one thing I do know that's confusing, so who knows what else happened in the history of this map. I know several areas of it were knocked out and rebuilt multiple times. Of course you can walk in there. That was for something that was planned, but this version's too old to have it. And we will return here later. I'm showing you this bit just so that we have a point of reference for later on. It'll all make sense. But I'm trying to go in the order that things were put in. So, we have this here, and I want you to pay attention to the way this is shaded here, because that's going to be quite sort of important. Like the way shading is done in this room with these sort of flickery quadrilaterals, I guess you'd call them. Sort of fan out like a triangle, but they're four-sided, you know, it's quadrilaterals. So we've got a bit of an era change here. We're still overlapping sectors. It's old enough to overlap sectors. So, you know, it's something I stopped doing over the years. Now, this obviously was another animation backdrop map, and I don't know if we could maybe make a playable map out of it. I wouldn't want to touch it, it's so corrupted that I had to fuck with it just to get it to not crash the game. That isn't centered, I don't believe, and the reason is you'd never see it from over there, you'd see it from over here, and I think it looked wonky if it was actually centered. And there's a problem with this map where we've had several sort of backtracks that we're going to also get into. I know I'm laying a lot of stuff on you here, aren't I? And this room is an older version than what we had. At some point it's had to be pulled back to an older version of the map, because it had like painting stacked up in it and shit, chars. And there's 2 possible ways we can go. We can go this way. Now, in here, you know, I want you to pay attention to... I should tell you that it's about 8 years that this map was worked on, so we're still in fairly early shit here. And we can sort of date it a little bit, because obviously this exterior was added on later. And when we come over to the tower, which itself is a strange thing, and the door used to be on this side of it, and there was reasons for that. But when we look at the texture choice and the scale, and we think back to, you know, we've got these wavy lines, these non-straight walls all over the place. And yeah, let's think back to the marina. So now we can start being able to date when things were made just by the characteristics of how they were made. Which I think is pretty interesting, I don't know if you would agree. So we're now pulling into the era of that marina. We're going to see more evidence of that. I mean, our doors have gotten narrower as well. I don't know if you noticed, but that doesn't really tell us much. But yeah, we're getting into that era of the marina where the scaling isn't entirely consistent, because it's sort of, things are changing just a little bit. There's a missing sink here. There's a fast transport system. You still see it on the grid. The textures get broken in this map, and this is the thing. This is why some shit is older, is just because the map's corrupt, and it got corrupted many times, and so that required a lot of backtracking. And we've fixed these many times, all the revisions of the map, they're fine, but they just break. Oh, raw portal's dirt wacky. So, yeah, the only way to get these to work is to delete stuff from the map. You know, you have to delete certain shit to get other shit to work. And the final example of that is this actually went to the tower. So the tower was enterable, but it's been erased. It's not that it's not built yet, it was built, and it would have stopped something working somewhere, so it would have been deleted again. And I don't have copies of the map that have it in. Plus I might have run out of walls. There is one sector left that it's sort of off the back of the map. There's just this one little walkway. But if we go down here, this goes to an area, and we'll rejoin this later on. If you stand on the lamp, you can get up there, but for some reason it's pushing me back. I don't know if you can see that. So that's pretty weird. It did it again before it even entered the sector, so it doesn't usually do that. This map behaves a lot different in DOSBox to what it does on an actual PC. It's pretty odd. Oh, come on, it was drawing fine for like a frame or two then. I don't get why it does this. But now, you see this room, a little bit different, isn't it? We've got this shading coming in. Again, we've got more of these broken textures. And the thing is, like, this room did used to look different. But it's as if it inherits from one to the other. Like, that's probably that's definitely wrong, that's the incorrect texture. But the shading's getting there and stuff. And I think we're sort of maybe making it out of the Marina era just a little bit. This isn't a two-wall yet, this is using just separate walls. It's still very dirty. And yeah, as you see, there's little relics of what the room used to be left there. Oh, and what have we got? Oh dear, yeah, it's definitely the Marina era, is very reminiscent of doors in there. But as you can see, we're pulling out of that time period now. We're getting away from it. Scaling's still all over the place. We haven't quite established things yet. We have our little dodgy entertainment room that was never finished because it would have been only briefly seen in the animation. And we actually have some deliberate texture panning skewing going on there. There is leftover geometry somewhere above us for this to be a Billy Boy window from an area above. Only works if you press that one door. This all used to be brick. This walkway didn't used to be here. But yeah, it's moving doors at least. And they behave a bit weird like that. I don't know why they do it. This map has some problems with doors. Slope ceiling's weird. It's got this wonk to it. Which again, giant stars in there. I don't know, a bit odd. So yeah, that's a lot of the oldest geometry. So now we've got this thing where we have a bit of a two-pronged approach where I sort of went down there, but also went not out here as such because this walkway didn't used to be here, but the area it's going into did. And we can see relics of what it was before the walkway, where this used to be a carved wall. This was outside, there was flies buzzing around the lamp, and I actually quite liked that version of it. I'm not sure why I got rid of the flies. It probably broke something, but yeah, with this area we sort of started here and at the end of that corridor at the same time, and we just met ourselves somewhere in the middle. So figuring out the order of things that are up here, that's a little bit complicated. So we'll go in this big room first. Someone's going to notice, and there is nothing up there. I don't know why it was built that way, but it was. And this, I think, really is more of a leftover of before these areas did meet in the middle. So this was probably our way of getting around just early on. Cannot get a cigarette paper out. But this is a big room, and this would have been a very focal room in the cartoon that this was the backdrops for. Well, you would have never seen it from those sort of angles. You know, Caleb's the camera with the sprite platforms, sector platforms, pathing sectors you'd have stood on to get the angles and shit. And so you would have only seen the room from like here and maybe up here. where you can see it's a big room, but you can't see it's empty, and then you just add on like here what you would need for episodes. Like, oh, we need a bandsaw, put one there. Oh, we need like a drum kit, add it there, and so on and so on. And yeah, you'd never really see just how empty the room was. And I know the bookcase stuff was elaborated on more and shit like that. This will be going in very much later. We can see just a single pixel through there. It's a very much later thing. So where are we now? Well, we're right here at the other end of this corridor. And that we're going to come back to. Because that room over there was destroyed and rebuilt about 3 times. And so it's actually newer, even though it went in early. And that corridor used to be a different shape. The lucky thing is the castle was meant to have just been added onto like haphazardly over the years, so it sort of fits that you have this almost nonsensical layout that resulted from this. But this area is none too interesting, and it's right, we have this room. I always like this. It's sort of warm and cozy, and then you have the counterpart room that's really cold. And I always kind of liked these two. There would have been more characters who would run away from that DJ guy would come to stay. We've got a bit of sprite work coming in here, haven't we? It's not amazing, but we have some sprite work appearing. Well, who would have thought? Little wall details. These aren't super interesting rooms or anything, but we should look in all of them. Yeah, this one I guess you must only seen from here. Because again, it was never meant to be a playable level. It was meant to make backdrops for a cartoon. So you don't build what you don't see, and there's a finite number of resources we can use. Again, it's another room that would have probably only really seen from this angle. And again, another one. This one's quite nice, isn't it? I like the little tiny books. You can see outside. See another broken raw portal. We'll come back to that later on. A little overhang, a little bit of sprite work. It's tentative beginnings of certain principles, isn't it? Like, it's not very... This had furniture in it once. There's some very broken walls in it as well, I happen to be aware of, so... See, just a thin slither of something very weird over there that, well, we're going to see at some point. Yeah, widths are a little bit weird and inconsistent around here. We get another hint of that fast transport system in this room. We have this bathroom with a very big bath, and a very square sink, and the privy. And that would take us down to the same sewers as the sink. So that's the thing. But we'll see in there in a bit. We would have this room. There's some sort of secret in here I can't remember how to get to. But again, I do find it novel how the way I built beds never changed. Because it was worked on sort of sporadically on and off over, like I say, about 8 years. We've seen how old it is. We know it predates the marina and everything. We know it's probably very old geometry at the start. So it would have been not a super early map, but it started when I was still very sort of shit at mapping. And it would have took me this right up to the end of me doing blood maps, but we're not seeing new geometry yet. We're going to get there. Oh god, that's broken. But yeah, we've learned how to abuse the raw stacks, because this is definitely multiple sectors going on here, isn't it? So, this behaves a lot in DOSBox. This works decently on a real machine, so I don't understand why DOSBox has so many problems. But it does. And now this is a particularly unusual era that we've gone into. Like, it's hard to place, but there's hints. Because this area was sort of messed with over time, and it does bar the scars have been messed with and changed a bunch of times. One of those hints is just the weird inconsistent widths, but You can see these are 6 wides and these are 3 wides. And I didn't do the multiples of 3 thing for very long at all. Now this area got rebuilt here. It used to be round to match the organ area upstairs. Which the organ would be, well, right there, just above. This goes through to that walkway under the kitchen now. I need to close this or else really bad things will happen. But yeah, this area used to be round, so, you know, that's... I have revisions of what the hell is going on. Okay, is it going to come back down? Okay, ghost doors, as we've seen, there's a few ghosts in this level like this. Okay, I don't think it's going to come back down. No, it is. Right, hopefully that stays down, or else we're probably going to crash the game. But, yeah, this is a thing where this would have shard some custom tiles with that fast ice arena map. Remember when I was talking about tentative sprite work? I don't know if anyone noticed, but the front of the computer's actually detailed in the ice arena. I forgot to mention that when I was doing it, because it was something you just didn't see, but again, we'll come back to that. There's a lot of come back tos in this, but you know, so this level had some custom tiles that I no longer seem to have. And, well, if we want to date this, there's, again, 3 wides, but it's certainly old enough that I didn't know the copy-paste key yet, because we've got a square hole down here. And this little bit here is detailed, the rest of it's not, just because one of the characters was going to have his record collection chucked down the privy. But yeah, again, look at the wall shapes. I don't build that shit anymore. Like, it looks really handmade, doesn't it, with these non-straight lines. So when we look at the walkways upstairs, you know, I've clearly got something of a formula beginning, but I don't really have much of a, you know, upstairs as in, I mean, where we are now, like above the privy area. You know, I'm clearly sort of starting to do formulaic building, but it's not quite there. We can sort of see as well, we've got slight rounding going on here, but it's still a square edge base, and you know, the scaling on the bath, that's a little bit different to what it was on the floor above. Fire looks weirdly good for some reason, I don't know why. It looks better than they usually do. Maybe it's just shade values, I don't know. Now, do you notice the door? Or maybe somebody caught it. The wedge has gone off the door and has moved onto the frame and been getting smaller. And smaller and smaller. And it'll keep doing that until it disappears. Strange, don't you think? You can see that round room there that we're in the floor above. And that would go underneath where that is. That would lead underneath it there. And this, you'll notice I can't. So this did exist and was deleted. Unfortunately, I don't have that geometry anymore. This is an older version of this room than what I had. Again, you can see where the custom tiles that the ice rink had would have been used. Would have been more bouncy needle type stuff. This fire bugs out on us for some reason. Don't know why it does that. Not a super interesting room. There was something else down here, I don't remember. And I think this area just existed so that wasn't drawing, and this would link back into another area underneath that wasn't built yet. And I don't think any link ever existed there. The ceiling's pointy. And this, oh, look, the weird looking corner. Weird looking corner, because this is now 4 wide, and it brings us back up here. I know there was a plant stuck on that sort of little ledge there. I don't know what happened to that. It disappeared through the map repeatedly, I think. It's probably what causes some of the crashes. It's probably off in like the void somewhere beyond the edge of the grid. And so, ooh, clues. And so, we come outside now, and we'll be venturing back in the sewers. Possibly, maybe not. This area used to chug like hell on the Pentium 2. I'd moved to by the time we were building this bit. This mate probably started on a Pentium 1. Either 75 or 166 megahertz, I can't be sure. This building was at one time finished, but now it's not. Again, corruption, I guess. Which sort of figures, because it had a weird sort of Billy Boy setup to get to the area below. There's an entire second building that's just that floor height here. This is one sector of it. So I don't really know what's going on there. Water here used to be green, and there used to be a wall here with rocks and a little opening. I think I only have a really, really early version with the green water and nothing in between. Before it went blue and the geometry changed considerably. I dread think how long it took to put all the fucking stars in. Maybe our elevator in the building was a better design. And this I've tempered with a little bit. I'll admit it to you, because it never worked back then. It used to bugger up the height of the sectors. I don't know if you noticed the light up there, that's now turned on and flashing. But yeah, it was a simple fix. I've actually mended it. The path's still broken, but it's very neat to actually see this working, like, after all these years. It was just one sprite that wasn't right. So yeah, it's pretty nice. But yeah, I think all that downstairs area where I was on about the custom tiles, that was done in one of the longest spurts of working on this map. And sort of must have been in a similar era to Ice Arena 1. I would think, and another reason I think that, well, I'll talk about that when I get back over there. But yeah, that path is busted. Look! There's a god mode on. Look at where the momentum behaves are. That's what I was talking about with the elevator in the other arena. If you look, there's a delay on the player's sort of reaction to it. It's a bit vomit-inducing, really, isn't it, I suppose? How many red walls must that use? Oh, we got one more thing to look at here. There is, somewhere in this wall, a campsite. The DJ, when he was between houses, came and camped out here for a while, and he never knew that the characters who'd done a runner from him were camping out in that castle just a few hundred feet away. I don't even think he realised it was there, because he's an idiot. I can't go inside the tent, I'm sorry. There's writing in there, I should have deleted it, with someone's name, and they're not here to say it's okay. And here's the thing, you know, when I tell you about people I know or people I knew or whatever, quite often I make the name up because I just don't feel right using people's real name when they're not there. So say if I knew someone called Danny, I'd call them Desmond, or I'd just give them a title like Car Guy or Stereo Guy, you know. That just goes back to that laggy wooded area. Tentative sprite work. This used to be different. There used to be like a grate there and another Billy Boy windowy thing going on. Well, we'll look at those openings later. So for now, we're going to go back up to the castle. No, we've been down here. There's no point. So I'll actually walk back, because I think it's faster going this way anyway. And there's something to observe. But yeah, one of the reasons I sort of know the area under here is from the Ice Arena days. Is because I remember when I was working on this map, the area down here and the areas up there, all the bedrooms and that, I remember actually having a dream that I was in this map. But it was such a random dream, because it wasn't really about the map. It was just that for some reason I was like in the level with my figure skating instructor, and I was just fucking her, like in damn near every room in the map. And yeah, it was a bit weird. She wasn't a bad-looking woman. I wouldn't have said no to her, but I never really had those sort of feelings about her. So, you know, she was just my skating instructor. It wasn't something I really thought about. But it was a dream I had. I think I've been working on the map a lot for like quite a while. And, yeah, but it's a fact here. You don't really see people doing this, and I don't understand why. Like, it looks cool. It doesn't break like this on real hardware. On the real hardware, the frame rate just lowers when you walk away from it. So I don't know why it has such trouble in DOSBox, especially why it's that angle specifically. It seems alright from over here. But yeah, this fact looks awesome. Why does no one do this? It's like, look, you can totally, like, I don't know, man. Maybe I'm the only person who knows how to do it. I'm not telling you how to do it. Like, if you can't figure it out, it's your own stupid fault. So, you know, yeah, sucks to be you, doesn't it? You know, 3 to 4 wide, such a clumsy transition. So we are now pulling into the very last geometry in the castle, I feel. Again, this area saw a few rebuilds. It looks sort of weird. But yeah, I can't walk through these because these are completely corrupt and it'll crash. So now let's look at this door. Now this door is a little bit older than the room that it leads into. But we look at the proportions. We're sort of back at a full height door. But that's all probably by choice. We're sort of a bit stretched wide. And we think back to the first DJ house, and that would be the era of this door, but the room behind it's a little bit newer. And there's something very weird about this door that none of the other doors have. We've also got this broken door here, which is actually a wedgie door. So again, you can see this bit's sort of old, but then you go over here and, oh, the wedge is on the frame. Weird, eh? For some reason, I have no sound. But for some reason, this door has sound, and it's the only one in the level that does. And the room we enter, and oh dear, this is a bit of a different era, isn't it? We've got these little details here, these little sprites. So we're seeing stuff like that show up now. Sprite mantelpiece, and when we look at the shape of the room and everything, well, it's a bit misfitting, isn't it? It's a bit fucking weird, because it sort of has, it's got that sort of emptiness and yet cramped feeling that DJ House 1 has, but we're sort of encroaching into the detail level of DJ House 2, so I would sort of think it was probably somewhere between those two. Probably sort of, you know, coming out of Ice Arena 1, DJ House 1, but sort of just maybe before DJ House 2 and Arena 2. So, just maybe is where I feel this version of the room came from, and this was the final version of the room. Looks a bit like Roth, really, doesn't it? Ooh, notice, the bills have come in. How much would this place cost to run? These candles must use loads of electricity. I mean, they are using electricity because they're on my PC and they're animated, and to display them, transistors have to turn on, and they use electricity. So we actually have candles that use electricity, which is just glorious. You know, that's real nice to think about. This must have had those vector chars. That sprite voxel replacement. Oh, what's this? 2 walls. We've got 2 walls started up now. That's pretty fucking neat. I think it is anyway. It is. The guy who owned the castle was, you know, they thought he was dodgy, but he was just paranoid, ex-military. He was actually a nice guy. But yeah, it's sort of a unique room, this. There's nothing else really looks like this, because the other maps, you know, were sort of either just before or just after. Maybe mines, like the mines level, I think it's safe to say this would squarely be in that era, perhaps. So I think that was sort of between the two, wasn't it? So that would have been going on at the same time, I guess. And now we're getting into the final areas of the castle. Well, we're going to come back here a second. But no, we'll do it this way. I'll just go in here straight off. So what have we got? A little bit of an age gap. And... oh yeah. Ice Rink 2 era, do we think? This big, sparse raw stack like this. Ice Rink 2. Gotta be Ice Rink 2 era. Has to be. There's no other way. Maybe sort of quite far into that map's development, because this is newer than the versions of that I have, I'm sure. And yeah, this big open raw area. It's very telling, very, very telling. I think now I've got the hang of it, haven't I? It's certainly not looking amazing, but I think I've got the hang of things. This is quite coherent looking. This room definitely got changed. This walkway, I think the one we stood on got shrank back up this way, and then this one came around here and went through a door there. But let's go downstairs now. Look at the door gems. You can see here that where the sectors offset, we're actually in overlapping sectors. Which isn't really that clever, but I just thought I'd note that because it's quite an advanced thing to do, I feel. Especially for old maps. But this was just a room that characters passed through. You were never really meant to go down here, and that goes to another area. But this here, you might notice, is behind that fireplace that has that little notch in it. Yeah, now maybe it all makes a bit of sense, because you might remember over there towards the top right corner of the screen there's those stairs that go down to those weird mismatched walkways. Now remember widths. Look back at an old map like Kill City. Look at how mismatched those walkways are. So, you know, that sort of tells you the age of the early geometry in this fucking level, doesn't it? When you think about it. But back to where we are now. Well, I probably learned how the copy and paste key works by now. I think that's a pretty safe bet. And yeah, this walkway, well, that walkway over there was going to join on. And, you know, as you might have gathered, just to show you real quick, I guess this here connects back in this room here. But obviously that wasn't there early on. What's weird is the doors for these areas were in really early and just didn't go anywhere for literally years. As soon as this corridor arrived, they got put in. So it was all planned. This area here got fucked with a lot. It used to be less detailed and sort of busted and shit. But yeah, you know, that stairway that goes down there, and that walkway's under there, and it was going to come all the way around. There was some weird Billy Boy connection to this room with it, and then the fireplace would have gone through into that little bit behind it that's underneath here. Meanwhile, that walkway that would have been on the higher level had a door here, and there were doors there, but they were removed, and then they did come back later, but I don't have a map revision that new. So, you know, there was one on each side. So a little bit strange, you know, how things change. And we've come a long way since the geometry in here, haven't we? Very long way. So, do you want to see the last area of the castle? The newest room I have on the castle? Do you want to have a look at it? If you're still here, I guess you... you can't fix the texture scaling, because as soon as you touch it, it just breaks somewhere else. The map's just too far gone. There's nothing I can do about it. I wish there was, but there's nothing. Okay, let's go in. Let's see it. Another thing you might notice, square doors, square frames. Times have changed just a little bit here, haven't they? But, here it is. The last room that I've got that I built for the castle. The room up here, well, empty. You can see where those diagonal doors would have been. It's had bookcases in it, and there was another staircase going down, and I think there was another staircase in this back bit here as well. So, yeah. This room. I think I've got it now. And look at the shading formula's changed. It's like, it's softer shading, like I do now. but there's more of it. It makes more sense than it used to. That's for sure. It has, you know, it's very sort of consistent with the way I do shading today. Very, very, very curious, is it not? You know, is that a full height door? I think it's just a placeholder door, because I think that's where the other Starway led to. So that's just the sprite. So I'm not really setting much store by that, because I'm sure it wasn't full height. And I mean, look at where the door frames look now. It's a lot different. Now it looks like a Zeph level, doesn't it? I think this is where you'd be able to look, and you'd come in here if you didn't know in advance, and you'd be, this is a Zeph level, or high treason level, whichever name you prefer. I think you can now see it. The only thing that isn't consistent is my ceiling detail, because I don't really do that anymore. I think a lot of that is just Duke's texture set doesn't lend itself well to that like Blood does. And it's one of the reasons I bailed. I wasn't really making playable maps anymore by the time I would have got here. And I decided I'd conquered this. I didn't want to do Blood anymore. I had my fun with it. Duke's harder to map for. It had a much more active community. And it's a generally unfriendly community a lot of the time, but not as unfriendly as Blood's community. I mean, there's decent people in Blood's community, but I don't know, man. A lot of people I've interacted with who are fans of this game are exceedingly hostile. And I don't have time for that. I don't need that. I don't need the hostility. That's why I'm bailing on the Duke community as soon as that fucking deliberately newbie project's done. Like, you know, I don't have time for people like that. And so, no, you fuck off. I was like, I'll go map for Duke. It's a harder game to map for. Like, it's probably easier to build a simple map in Duke than it is in Blood, but to build something advanced, a lot harder. You have to really, really understand the game mechanics and the game engine to make something special and advanced with that game. But this room, I'm still quite pleased with. I think this, if you released a map to this standard today, I don't know what people are making, but I do feel like people would be like, no, that's actually acceptable, there's nothing wrong with it. You know, it wouldn't be big, groundbreaking, earth-shattering high quality, but I don't think anyone would have a problem with the level of quality. I think it would be alright. This is a bit messy, old geometry, it's not been tidied up yet. It definitely had more done to it. There was detail because there was shadows for the supports, but they were just making the map crash, so I had to delete them. Yeah, these doors are just placeholders. But you see, this would have led into another set of walkways that would have connected the same way that door that goes outside from the lower area, it would have connected into that. And that's what I was on about with that back corridor that I think was just to hide that portal. Same deal. So, yeah, you know, that's, yeah. That's about it for there, I think. And I'm still pleased with this room, all these years on. And when we look at the widths, what do we have? 8 minus 1, because we minus 1 to add that. So now we're going into this, we're in 4 wides and 8 wides, and it's again very reminiscent of how I build levels today. You can see I've got it down now. I've figured it out. We've just about figured the shading out. Needs a bit more detailing than it has here, but we've just about got it. Not very far to go now. And yeah, but this is where I left. This is pretty much the end of my time with blood mapping. So I only have one more thing to show you in here. It's not great. It's not amazing. And this I've actually built after the fact. It was built back then, but I don't have the geometry anymore, and it was pissing me off because it was the one major area I had missing. So I was like, you know what, I'll just rebuild it. So this I've just rebuilt from memory, and I think it's fairly close, but I think it's in the wrong place. I think it was maybe farther out that way. And well, yeah, you know, I guess if I was to build, I tried to make it fairly consistent with the map, so I didn't go as detailed as maybe I would have liked to, but it's how I remember it being. Because it would have been the last area I built, really, but I don't have anymore. And there's a weird thing here. I don't know if you're hearing this, but we'll turn it on just in case you are, where the surfaces on the bridge change randomly. I don't know what you're hearing, but usually you hear metals and woods and concretes and all sorts. And the bridge is so clearly made out of wood, so I don't know why it does that. But yeah, I've even got my trees to hide the drawbugs, and yeah, you know, I just had to rebuild it because it pissed me off too much that it wasn't here. You know, it just didn't seem right, and so I put it back in, and well, it is what it is. It's not perfect. The drawing issues exist in the original, and you know, it was never a problem because it was for animation backdrops. I've said before, you only had to make the map work as well as it needed to get the backdrop you needed. So it could be as broken as it wanted to in areas that you'd never see. It really didn't. It's like how the back of that car had all that black stuff all over it. Just, you know, no one would ever see it. Black. There's a new black girl started working in the pharmacy. She's pretty hot, actually. I was joking, saying I should say like I fell off my bike and lost my meds so I can go back, but they messed my medication up anyway, so I probably am going to have to go back. So I'll be right for joking. Don't know why there's some spots here that are magic, and the rest of it you just game might crash here. Yeah, this is underneath, in case you wondered. Also, I can't walk on there. Solid for some reason. Don't ask me why. Yeah, I guess this is my little prick tease to you if you're out there Takadun. Oh shit. If I was to start building blood levels again, then probably seeing sort of what they'd look like, only they'd be a bit more detailed and probably less prone to crashing the game. You know, I would try to not make it do that. Again, the player would never... You know, it's not a playable map, so things like that didn't really matter. Oh, I never showed you the drawbug. Drawbug. Ghost chars. But yeah, really isn't anything... Oh no, there is. There's one last area. It's just a little area that's off the end of here. You see, we've seen the DJ's campsite. Well, there was some antagonistic characters, and while he was camping out there, unbeknownst to really everybody, although they knew he was there because they were coming and causing trouble for him, there was another campsite going on. And this is where I think my positioning's wrong, because I remember this opening being... First of all, I remember the entry to the campsite being way farther that way, and I do remember this opening looking more towards the bridge, so that suggests my memory's right and I've just fucked up, but it's too late now, so it is what it is. You get what you're given, right? So it's a little area, but it's like I say, I had to add this and the bridge back in, and I'm not going down there again, but I feel like that's it. I feel like that's it. So I got to think, what do I want to play alongside the long drive? Because I want to sort of do Bully, but I don't want two modern games going at once. So maybe I should do the campaign to Age of Empires 2. I played loads of Age of Empires 2 in the time this map was being built. But yeah, if anyone else out there has anything like this, like, it doesn't matter how shit it is, it's a healthy thing. If you can look back at something you made in the past and be like, that's crap. With any art form, that's good, because it means you know you can do better. So don't worry how crap you think it is, make fun of it, say it's crap. But if you have a level that you never released, I want to see it, and I'm sure a few other people would as well. Especially if it was worked on for such a long time like this. This map can be no later than 2008, because I've definitely dropped it by the time I went and got my own house. And I would have probably been quite busy for the last year or two then, so... You know, it was worked on for a long time, and it's very old now, and as we've seen, it's like a diary of geometry styles, isn't it? You can see learning the ropes, learning how to use build. Well, bastard build, because it's map edit, but... It's a strange thing, isn't it? It's weird. You know, I think it's quite neat to dig into it. But I can't be the only person who also finds it a little bit eerie, just walking through all these abandoned places. It's not like scary, it's just like when you go into a building that nobody's been in for a really long time. It gives you that strange feeling. I don't know, but in any case, bear with me on the long drive. Like I say, we're probably about 2/3 done with that, or at least coming up on 2/3. And yeah, Bully, Age of Empires 2, maybe something else instead, I don't know, but we'll see. Don't forget about the leftovers part, but as it is, I think that's really everything I got to say. And I can't see any reason that Blood would ever return to this channel, to be honest. I thought we were done with it, and now I really think we're done with it. I just can't see any reason that we'd have to come back to it now. It's not a game I want to play, and I just know. So I'll do other things. But there we go. That was that Loch Nary Castle. It's a big map. It really is. It's pretty weird to think about it. It's like, damn, I made this, and a lot of it's awful. But I'm not a treason. Thanks for watching, and hopefully I haven't fucked the recording up and forgot shit or whatever, and don't have editing problems and garbled files and whatever this time. But if I do, you might just get it in this state, and I'll just fucking put shit in the description about it. Anyways, that'll do it, I think. So yeah, ta-ta. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.